Good morning. Let me say good morning to the rest of you. Good morning. I want to begin my presentation, which is entitled Actualizing Truth and Integrity, congregating at the nexus between one's consciousness and one's destiny. Let me express my thanks and appreciation to President Bailey, to our provost, to the trustees, to our faculty, to my nominator, Dr. Laura Smith, I thank you. To the Medal of Distinguished Service Committee for both this award and recognition, as well as the invitation to address you today. Let me also thank my family, my wife, Davida, and partner in life, the love of my life. My oldest daughter is in the house from right here in Brooklyn, across the way, and my youngest daughter, Kenya, who is at home in California. I am the man I am, as I strive to be a devoted husband to my wife, a nurturing father to my children, a supportive sibling to my brothers and sisters, and a strong black man trying to make this world a little bit better. Now, the climate of unrest and protest and demonstration against the atrocities that are occurring in Gaza and Palestine and Israel are horrific. The killing and the murder of unarmed civilians is abominable, the carnage inhumane. And I can't begin my address without a recognition of human beings who are suffering on both sides of that conflict, but principally in Gaza and the hostages, and the students, faculty, and staff in colleges and universities all across the nation who are exercising their voices of outrage and disgust. And while I support free speech, hear me well, on my university, I want to exercise and support free speech. But I want my student affairs people on the front line, not our law enforcement. But understand there is a permeable boundary so that as long as we do not harm people or destroy property, then I think that order should be the protocol. I support free speech and the vigorous exchange of ideas that are the hallmark of the academy. But I'm not a fan of occupation, nor am I a fan of hate speech that would seek to criticize anyone because of their race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, or religious background or affiliation. Our job is to support the dignity and humanity of everybody. Let me also extend a special thanks to my good friend and brother, Dr. Darrell Sue. How fortunate, and I say that again, how fortunate Teachers College, Columbia University is to have a man, an eminent scholar like Dr. Sue, and how blessed I am to have him as a friend. I love you, my brother. Ladies and gentlemen, he is one of the best in the country. He is the baddest Asian American psychologist that we know. Give it up for Darrell Sue, if you would. I also want to extend my congratulations to all of you graduates. As you cross the threshold into the professional world, indeed, the late Congressman Shirley Chisholm reminds us graduates that service is the rent we pay for living on this earth. So my advice today, get prepared to pay some service rent. Y'all ready? Oh, I didn't hear you. Are y'all ready? All right. Now, in understanding my professional roles, please know that I recognize the difference between what I do for a living and who I am at the core of my being. Let me say that again. You got to understand the difference between what you do for a living and who you are at the core of your being. What I do are the roles and activities Dr. Sue mentioned and you read about. But who I am at the core of my being is a healer who strives to be a healing presence in the lives of people that I touch. And in embracing that role of healer, I knew intuitively that you cannot be a healing presence in this world if you lose the capacity to believe that people can elevate themselves to rightful places of rulership and mastery over their own circumstance. And I teach others, as wise elders taught me, to muster strength in the midst of fear and intimidation, to persevere through adversity that is inevitable, graduates, in life, and to live life with integrity. I'm talking about being honest and trustworthy. You've also got to be resilient when life knocks you down, to imagine what is possible and not just probable, and to master the cultural disposition of transformation. Everything ain't gonna go your way, but sometimes you just got to improvise, transcend, and transform it into something that is gonna be a benefit. Yes? I remind folk all the time, hear me well. Life at its best is a creative synthesis of opposites in fruitful harmony. Let me say that again. Life at its best is a creative synthesis of opposites in fruitful harmony. A lot of different meanings. One of them is sometimes your greatest strength, graduates, will also be your greatest weakness. But sometimes your greatest weakness will also be your greatest strength. It just depends on the context. Context should inform content. Now, I make several assumptions that I hope become the teachable moments in the few minutes I have for you graduates at this convocation ceremony. And one of those truths that I've embraced is that you will never discover how strong you can be until your moment of greatest vulnerability. Part of my power, if you will, in my integrity of my spirit is not simply my voice nor my mind, but it's also my vulnerability. Because that vulnerability dissipates status, it humanizes my identity among other people. And I'd invite you graduates to learn the same. Indeed, vulnerability is your power. The second assumption I make, similar to the great scholar W.B. Du Bois, who reflectively questioned what does truth look like in the face of deception, and what does integrity look like in the face of oppression. See, in many respects, my truth-telling in writings, convention speeches, and addresses, courses I've taught, have required that I speak with an uncompromising clarity about the things that matter. Things that are oppressive and unjust, things that assault the dignity and humanity of others. But in those instances, however, hear me well, I had to be prepared to sacrifice whatever the cost to stand on my own integrity. Indeed, bearing truth is not an exercise without consequence or accountability, as I remind us this morning in this wonderful, magnificent theater, that Dr. King's letter from a Birmingham jail was actually written from a jail cell. Y'all hearing me? Third, I believe that as spiritual beings, there's a duality to our spirituality. In that despite whatever positive energy you emit in your day-to-day activities, graduates, you will always find instances of unjustified suffering, unmerited pain, and undeserved harm. The question is never, do things happen? But rather, how will you as graduates sustain some movement and momentum in the face of whatever adversity you will be confronting? My brother Cornel West reminds us of that. Now, in my own life, I've heard the voice of Brother Malcolm X, who exclaimed that a man who stands for nothing will fall for anything. I've heard the voice of Dr. King, who argued that the time is always right to do what is right, while also asserting, my friends, ladies and gentlemen, that our lives begin to end the day we become silent about the things that matter. So what voice do you hear, graduates? You see, that voice of principled and moral authority reverberating in my head as a graduate student back in the day, also as a young faculty member when I was at the University of Pennsylvania, and even as a senior executive that now manages a university. Truthfully, I've had to struggle with the cognitive dissonance between what I had to do on one hand and what I felt was right to do on the other. What you talking about, Parham? At Washington University in St. Louis, brand new graduate student, in the first month of a graduate program, we're assigned a 10-page paper. Now, I'm a University of California graduate. I think I write pretty well. Not a problem. I'm even helping some of my colleagues in class with their papers. I get my paper back, and a critique from my professor earned me an A-, and I'm just pissed off. True story. And the critique, the paper assignment was your theory of personality. What's the right answer to the question? There is none. It's your theory. So the critique was not directed at the general reflections that I offered on the human condition, but rather at my critique of any theory or Eurocentric normative standard in psychology as a basis for understanding and diagnosing the behaviors and lifestyles of people of African descent. All kind of red pencil through the paper. I had a question. Was I prepared to stand on my truth and risk the consequences of antagonizing my professor, trying to teach her the error of her ways in her class? My answer? I muted my voice to appease the expectations of that faculty member, received the A, graduated with my master's degree. Now universities like that pay me big money to come back and say the same thing they didn't want to hear as a graduate student. Who knew? I entered the University of Pennsylvania. Unbeknownst to me, the first African-American academic psychologist Penn ever hired in its 240-year history after it was founded by Ben Franklin back in the 1740s. Young assistant professor. And I spoke to my faculty in my department meetings about potentially unethical practices in training master's and doctoral degree counseling psychologists. And I dared question how we could live in a city like Philadelphia, which at that point was 44% black, and not have a course in African-American psychology or multicultural counseling, and they studied a word or read a text by Darrell Soup, or Wade Nobles, or Naeem Akbar, or Asa Hilliard. And a colleague of mine politely mentioned to me, that's not a way to make tenure. My question, was I prepared to uphold my integrity and continue arguing for what was right, or remain silent to appease the sensibilities of my faculty colleagues? In that instance, I kept pushing. And right now, at the time at least I left Penn, you could no longer graduate from Penn's graduate program in counseling psych without a mandatory course in African American psychology. That's what ethical leadership looks like. But then, of course, people think you got it made when you get to be a president. Don't get it twisted. During my first year as president, and just before my investiture, where they invest you with all the rights and privileges thereto pertaining, I found myself having severe pain on the right side of my head, headaches that made me pass out 3 times. I only seen that in movies. And a month after my investiture, the headaches were intensifying so much that I finally went to the doctors and had them check it out, and they found that I was diagnosed with lymphoma cancer. Don't smoke, drink, do drugs, live a pretty healthy life, been an athlete all my life. Yet during the course of 6 months of chemotherapy in a hospital outpatient infusion center, on top of taking some 16 pills a day, I got up every day and went to work. And the truth was, I was weak. The truth was, I was ill. The truth was, I was vulnerable. But in refusing to allow misery to have the last word, I went on with life camouflaging my illness, trying to be there for my wife, for my children, for my family, for my friends who were so worried about me. What does truth look like in the face of adversity was a test that I had to experience. But I stand here before you today, almost 5 years this October clean of that chemotherapy, and the ancestors and creators say, I'm not done. So these are just a few of the scenarios that I've been confronted with at different phases of my professional journey, which challenged me to reconcile what truth and integrity really look like. Now, as you graduates prepare to embrace the opportunities, challenges, and responsibilities that await you, whether you're receiving degrees in counseling, clinical psych, or in human development, you'll need at least 3 things in order to stand on truth and integrity. How many things, graduates? How many? You need 3 things. You got to have vision, you got to have courage, and you got to have voice. So relative to vision, particularly in your roles as human service helping professionals, you will need to see people for who they are really at the core of their being, and not who society stereotypes them to be. You'll need to recognize that circumstances are places people come from, not who they are at the core of their being. Please remember, graduates, people may come from poverty, but their spirits can still be rich. They may come from violent surroundings, but still have a peaceful heart. They may even come from wealth and abundance, but still have an empty soul yearning for some purpose and direction. You must have vision to see beyond the surface structure to a more deep structured interrogation of what human authenticity looks like. Y'all ready for that? You've got to also have courage. Please know that it doesn't emerge from a place where there is no fear or anxiety or danger. It is the willingness to move forward in the face of that challenge and danger that defines courageous action. I mean, just imagine that you could develop a courageous posture in life that vocalized choosing hope over cynicism and despair, courage over fear, kindness over cruelty, cooperation over competition, sharing and giving over hoarding one's blessings, understanding over intolerance, forgiveness over holding unnecessary grudges, service over being lavished upon, caring and compassion over insensitivity, and love over hate. I mean, just imagine. But it takes courage. And relative to your voice, I want you graduates to imagine a voice that is not locked away in the abyss of uncrystallized mental musings that reduce it down to useless chatter. A voice that is prepared to take flight amid the air of intellectual stimulation, and not one that is tethered to an anchor of cautious reflection where sound is muted by that insatiable need to seek affirmation and validation from those we believe should approve of the content and process dynamics of our speech. The fundamental lesson my teacher first taught me is never seek validation from your oppressor, and that guides my life every step of the way. As I close, I'm reminded in this moment of the great Algerian psychiatrist Frantz Fanon. If you haven't read Fanon, right, read him. He reminds us that each generation out of relative obscurity must reach out and seek to fulfill its legacy or betray it. You graduates have an opportunity to fulfill that legacy or betray it. And so my journey in navigating the nexus between truth and integrity intersects with my intention to align my consciousness with my destiny. That is the principle of ore ire, aligning one's consciousness with one's destiny. And it involves the continuous examination of self to ensure that I am involved in narrowing the gap between the real me, who recognizes my personal shortcomings and my vulnerabilities, and the aspirational self that is the model I seek to emulate as a healing presence in other people's lives. You graduates who are now poised and positioned to cross the threshold into new degree recipients will also be challenged to align your consciousness with your destiny and determine what your destinies will be. You've got to ask yourself, graduates, what is my destiny? Not what is my job. Not what am I getting paid for, but what difference do I want to make? For it is in that space where you will find your own truth and challenge yourself to see if you have the courage to both speak it and live it. Y'all ready for that? Do you have the courage to speak it and live it? I thank you very much for awarding me today. Thank you.